This presentation will explain the settings in Literacy Pro, what the default settings are, and how you can adjust them. The settings in Literacy Pro determine student access. On the settings page, there are three sections: Literacy Pro test settings, book quiz settings, and scroll down to awards. When you first log into Literacy Pro, there are many default settings. Some settings are checked on, others are left unchecked. Under the test settings, the minimum days between tests is set to 50. It is recommended students take the Literacy Pro test about once a term. This is to allow time for growth between tests. To familiarise students with the Literacy Pro test, there is an option to take a practice test. This default option is checked on. The practice test has very low Lexile items for the year level. For that reason, the option for students to take only one practice test is also checked on. Schools have the option to limit the titles in students' reading lists to those in the school library if they've done a library match. The default for this setting is that it is unchecked. Reading lists in Literacy Pro generate up to 300 titles. Schools may use this setting to limit the books below 300. All that needs to be done is to check the box and put in the number of titles to appear on the list. The default that limits the time students have access to the test is left unchecked. If you want to change this, check the box, and you may choose the days and times that you want students to have specific access to the test. For example, you may choose to give students access only during weekdays, so you would uncheck Sunday and uncheck Saturday. You may also choose to limit the hours in the day students have access. For instance, you may set the start time at 9 and the end time at 1500 or 3 p.m. You should also check the time zone, as the start and finish times correspond with your local time zone. If it does not, you need to change it in Learning Zone. To check the time zone in Learning Zone, log out and go to Manage Calendars. Here you will find the time zone and you would need to check it. If it's not correct, go to Edit and change it. The test settings are also checked on and default for allowing students to see their reading list, limiting the reading list to titles that have book quizzes, and allowing students to change their reading interests. For book quiz settings, the default is set to displaying incorrect answers. This only happens when students do not pass the quiz. The default for allowing students to print their quizzes is checked off. The quiz pass mark is set to 70. You may adjust this up or down. The default for limiting access to quizzes is checked off. You may change it in the same way that you could change the test access times. There is an option to include teacher added points in certificate amounts. The default is checked off. If you wish to include teacher added points in awards, then check the box on. However, it is only valid when the awards are based on points earned. Other defaults for quiz settings include restricting the number of quiz attempts to 3 and the number of days between quiz attempts to 7. You may choose to turn these options off or leave them on and change the number of days. In Literacy Pro, all books are classified by educational level. The educational levels are deliberately conservative so that the books are considered appropriate for classroom use. They're also put in place so that they filter titles so that a lower primary student doesn't end up with books suitable for an upper primary student, and so on. There are 4 levels. Lower primary has titles for students in Foundation to Year 2. Middle primary is suitable for Years 3 and 4. Upper primary, Years 5 and 6. And secondary. The default in Literacy Pro is set so that students cannot search outside their educational level for books or quizzes as classified by Literacy Pro. That means a student in Year 3 is limited to titles classified in Literacy Pro for middle primary. The way a teacher can check the educational level of an individual title is to go to Search and key in the title. For example, in this search, Hello Possum is classified as upper primary, while Possum Magic is classified as lower primary. Schools who choose to give access to titles outside the student's immediate educational level may check the box and choose the levels they want to give access to. Awards in Literacy Pro may be based on points earned or quizzes passed. For points earned, the defaults are set at 25 for blue, 50 for red, and so on. To change the amount of points earned, you just need to check in the box and edit the amount. To change to quizzes passed, once again, the defaults are set and you may modify the amounts if you wish. In Literacy Pro, there is a hierarchy for changing the settings. An administrator may change the whole school. This is usually done at the beginning of a year. A class teacher may change a whole class. This overrides what the administrator has done. And a class teacher may also override the class settings for an individual student. For example, the administrator in this school may choose to limit the number of books in each student's reading list to 50. It may also be decided not to limit the list of titles to those that have book quizzes. After changes have been made, they should be saved. Then those changes apply to all classes. The administrator may also choose to include teacher-added points and change the number of days between quizzes to 1 and save. Changes may also be made at the class level. For instance, in Class 3A, the teacher may decide to limit the number of books to 100 and also may want students to read books that do have quizzes. This teacher may also decide to limit the quiz access to only during the week. But what's important is that the changes all be saved. The teacher in 5G may want to leave most of the settings set by the administrator, but allows students to search outside their educational level. In this case, this teacher wants them to be able to search on middle and upper primary titles. She also wants to change the awards to be based on quizzes passed, not points earned, and then saves those settings. Then the teacher in 5G may want to change the settings for individual students. For instance, Louise is a struggling reader, so the teacher wants to give her access to not only middle and upper primary, but also lower primary titles. She also wants to change the number of quizzes that Louise has to pass so she'll feel positive. So she makes the first certificate level 2, then the second certificate level 4, just for this student, and saves. Other students in this class, such as Julia, still have the original settings, but Louise has slightly different settings. At the end of the school year, the administrator may choose to restore the defaults to the standard Literacy Pro setting. This will change all of the settings set by all teachers and for all students. If you have questions about Literacy Pro, please contact your Territory Manager or email this address.